Final Fantasy Brave Exvius has been out for 5 years, and in that time it's seen many upgrades to the rarity and the power level of its units. Any new player can quickly become overwhelmed with what to do with their Neovisions, let alone their 1 to 5 star units. So today I'm going to break down what you can do with your new units and any dupes that you should pull along the way. This guide is aimed at new players, so veterans, be sure to chime in with any advice that you have in the comments below. I'd also like to mention that any players, new and old, can join the Mysidia Gaming Discord to talk in our FFBE channel and help each other out. The link for it is in the description below. Let's start by talking about the 3 and 4 star units. 3 and 4 star units in FFBE are mainly fodder nowadays. They don't provide any assistance in combat, except for some niche events that you might do. So it's safe to fuse all of your dupes together using the new bulk fusion update. However, there are actually some TMRs that might be worth grabbing if you're a new player. So I'm going to go over a few of them below, but otherwise you're going to get these over time through the bulk fusion anyway. It's not going to be a huge deal if you do fuse together 3 versions of a unit that you want multiple of the TMR, but you can always keep an eye out for that if that's something that you're interested in. First up is Varen, and he has a TMR that is an accessory called the Craftsman's Secret Book. You can use this to imbue your physical attacks with different elements, and this was useful in the recent Elemental Dummy Challenge, but it's also good for completing objectives and just giving yourself elements, access to elements that you might not have at the current time. So definitely worth a new player getting this TMR. Then we have Kianos, who is also 4 stars, and the TMR here is Heart Overcoming Hatred. This boosts LB damage by 50% and then gives you some LB gauge fill. This is something that you might not have access to as a new player, and this is a really easy way to get a pretty high amount of LB damage. Now, if you don't know, you're going to be stacking as much LB damage as you can. The cap is 300%, and that's going to help your finishers deal lots of damage. So a new player looking to build up their finisher to take on some content might want to use this TMR. I'd also like to mention Asaru because he has bonds with the Aeons, and this will actually allow you to fill up your evocation gauge every single turn. Now, this ability does not stack with itself, so if you get multiple versions of this, you have to equip them to each of your party members, but using this and other materia that boost the evocation gauge fill means that you can fill it up every single turn, and it's easy to complete any sort of missions that need you to cast lots of espers or finish somebody off with an esper, or even just if you're using a strategy like Sinzar's recent Lord of the Sewers clear with Holy, Reflected, and Carbuncle. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you might be watching this video later on. But either way, it's a good idea to pick up a couple of these. There's actually other fills that you can get, like the Bahamut Fina. She also has a evocation gauge fill, so this isn't the only place that you can get it, but it is something to keep an eye on if you want it. Another thing to keep an eye out for is for any symbols like this. So this is a materia, and it is a killer, and all the killers have this kind of depiction here of this monster being slashed. Killers are very, very powerful in FFBE, and you definitely want to get your hands on as many as you can. So this one specifically boosts physical damage by 50% against stone monsters. So not just raising your attack or your LB damage, it's raising the damage that you do against a specific target. So this is the best damage boost that you can get in the game, of course only when you're fighting a specific target. So you can get these on all sorts of units, so definitely keep an eye out for them. And finally, one other thing to look out for is any sort of materia or equipment that gives you resists. So not just elemental resists, but also status ailment resists, because these can again come in handy in very specific circumstances where maybe a boss does fire damage and you're trying to stack 100% fire resistance. Now, it's better to get this on equipment than it is materia, because you want to be using your materia slots for other things, but at the end of the day, you can't be picky. This here is Race's TMR, and it's pretty good. You get some magic, but you also get some resistances, so definitely something you could consider picking up. But again, this is very much more niche than picking up killers or picking up the other TMRs that I mentioned. It's just something to put on your radar. You can always go to ffbeequip.com to identify TMRs that might provide resistances or killers or whatever else you need, and then you can use the wiki to find out which units actually have those TMRs. And keep in mind that we get a lot of TMR Moogles from the game, not so many that you can just go and, you know, Moogle every single unit that you want, but it's pretty easy to go ahead and say, well, I want this 4-star TMR. I don't need to wait for it. I can just Moogle it right now, and I will get some more Moogles in the future. So with that in mind, try to Moogle units that you're then going to fuse, because then they'll still contribute to another unit's TMR progress, and then you're going to be just as efficient as you can possibly be. I also wanted to take a quick second to talk about the standard summon, which uses friend points, because this actually gives you 1 to 3 star units. And again, this isn't something that, you know, an experienced player is going to be summoning on anymore, but you can actually get units that have TMRs, that have killers, they have spells, maybe they have something like Equip Helm, and you really want to equip a helm for a specific thing onto a unit. But the main thing here is to get the killers from these units. So if you're a new player, you can save up your friend points if you want. You know, we have a friend point summon going on right now for Neovision Fragments, and we've had it in the past for other rewards, but it is worth investing into the standard summon at first, just so that you can get some of those TMRs. Next, we're going to talk about 5-star units. Now, 5-star units are units that can be upgraded all the way to 7 stars, and some can even be taken to Neovision Awakened. 7-star units are kind of power crept at this point, especially damage dealers, so you're not really going to be using them for your formations, although there are situations where you might, and there's some really good 7-star units like Sylvie. But we're going to talk about how you can upgrade these units and what their real use for is at this point, which is to get their TMRs and their STMRs. I'm going to give an example of upgrading a 5-star just so you know how it all works. So first we go into the enhanced units. We're going to use Roberta here. And we can go to the fusion and sail units, and you can just select max level down in the corner here, and that will automatically give you the number of cactars that you need to put this unit to max. So once we've done this, then we have to awaken the unit to 6 stars. We can go directly from the enhance unit screen over to the awaken unit screen and just awaken. Once we go back, we can go again to enhance units. We can click on the middle here, select max level, and boom, we're at the max 6-star level. And from this point now we need to go to 7-star awakening, but to do that we're going to need a dupe. Now there's multiple ways that we can do this. We can convert a unit that is another Roberta into a dupe, and they can be 5 stars, that's fine. Or we can buy one from the 5-star select ticket shop, and we can do that with 8 tickets versus 10 tickets that you would use to buy a full unit. So buying the prisms is a little bit cheaper than buying an actual unit, and it's definitely a good way to upgrade your units. However, if you happen to have a lot of dupes, and eventually you're going to get a ton of dupes, you just go to convert units here, and you can see, oh no, these units are locked. We can long press on them, and then we're able to unlock them without having to move around at all. So this is something I learned very late. So we can click on the unit we want to convert, go to fixed, awaken, and then boom. Now we have a unit at 7 stars. And from here, we can see they have their TMR, so here's Crimson Blood, which is their spear. But then we can click on the right and we have the Dragoon's Wisdom, which is her STMR. And this is pretty awesome because it boosts jump abilities by 100% the damage there. So that's really awesome. So now we found our Roberta, we're in the enhanced unit screen, and we can get her all the way to 120, but we can also fuse any dupes into her. Now if we fuse a dupe into her, and it could be a 5-star, it doesn't have to be a 6 or a 7, you are going to get 50% of the STMR progress and then 5% of the TMR progress. So obviously when we're getting our TMRs, we want to be using the Moogles, but to get the STMRs, you don't want to waste an STMR Moogle necessarily. You would maybe just want to wait for dupes or go get some dupes from the select ticket shop, and then that way you can be on your way to getting the STMRs of various 7-star units. Now if I had a second copy, I would actually go and fuse that, and you can see what it looks like. But when you do this, you're actually going to get a 50% TMR Moogle. Every time you get the STMR of a 7-star, you're going to get the TMR Moogle that you can then use on a unit. So that's really handy. You're going to be getting a ton of those. And over the time you're going to be playing this game, you're going to get so many 5-stars. You're going to be loaded with all these STMRs. You just have to know what to do with them. Now, if you ever have a 7-star unit and a 7-star dupe, you can actually fuse the 7-star dupe into the other 7-star, and you won't get 50% progress, you'll get 100% progress. So one thing that you could do, and I'll show you right now, is as an example, I had 2 Crown Prince Noctises, and Crown Prince Noctis has one of the best STMRs in the game. So his STMR gives you 50% LB damage. It can be upgraded through the Chronicle Battles to have a bunch of attack and other stats, and it's just so good. So you definitely want multiple. And one thing you could do is you could get a couple of them and you can fuse them into each other, but before you do that you can grab the STMR off one and then fuse it into the other, and you can be economical like that so that you can actually get lots of value out of your different units. When you're in doubt, just use the daily help thread on Reddit and you can ask for advice. Should I get multiple STMRs of this unit? Is it worth using a Moogle on that unit? Should I be using my tickets for this? But at the end of the day, one of the biggest things is to wait until you actually need something. Don't jump the gun and spend your resources in FFBE because you might take a while to get them back. Just be patient, and when you actually need a unit, when you actually need an STMR, when you need a TMR, that's when you use your Moogles, that's when you fuse your dupes, and then you're ready to reap the rewards. One more thing to mention about 5-star units is that some of them, once you get them to 7 stars, max level, and have 100% STMR, can be converted to a Neovision Awakened form. To do this, you're going to need fragments, and this is where you're going to convert units into fragments. These are your dupes. This is a dupe of Ariana, and I'm actually going to awaken her using that dupe, and then now she is a Neovision Awakened unit. But keep in mind, you might not want to do this with a Neovision Awakened unit if you don't actually need them and you'd rather have an extra copy of an STMR, in which case you would want to get that extra 5-star, get it all the way up to 7-star, get the STMR off of it, and then you could then you could convert it to fragments, then you could get your Neovision Awakening, but it just depends on what you're trying to do with the account. So don't just turn all of your Neovision Awakened units into Neovisions if you don't need to, because you might want their STMRs as well. Neovisions start in Neovision form, and you can immediately see their STMR and their TMR. Neovisions generally have very strong trust masters that you might want some multiples of, so always be careful when converting a dupe into fragments. That is very tempting as a new player because you want to get the Transcension Pearl that comes whenever you convert a Neovision unit into fragments, but the rule of thumb is to only convert units exactly when you need them. So for example, I have 5 copies of Diverti right now, and I could convert them all and get 5 pearls, but it's way safer to wait until I actually need those pearls, because I don't know, maybe I'm going to want some of those TMRs and STMRs from Diverti. Now, I'm not actually going to want Diverti's STMR, that's just an example of a unit that I have a lot of. So another good rule to follow is to always keep the first copy of any of the Neovisions that you pull, because you never know when you might need them for content, for something that's in their kit. So you don't want to be converting units that you've just pulled 1 copy of. If you have 2 copies of them, then it's a little bit safer to convert the second one, but again, you want to use things like the wiki, the daily help thread, and just Google searching to find out before you convert a copy of a unit if maybe they have a really good TMR or STMR that you want to use Moogles to get, and then convert them into fragments. Something I want to clarify is that if you get the TMR and STMR on a Neovision unit, they're still going to convert for 25 fragments and a Transcension Pearl. So with that in mind, you want to grab the TMR and STMRs off of units that you are going to convert. And if you're going to keep that 1 copy for yourself, that's the one that you don't do anything to, because as you upgrade it, when you get to the EX level 2 for Neovision Awakening, you are actually going to get the STMR Moogle for that unit, so you don't want to use any Moogles on it anyways. And if you're converting and you're getting the TMRs off of the ones that you're going to convert, then later on you always have the option of grabbing the TMR off of the one that you didn't convert, the one that you're using in your party, and that one's just going to gain TMR status as you fight anyway, so then you eventually will get 2 copies of it. There are some very powerful Neovision STMRs that you might want to look out for, and I'm going to list a few here, and if there's other ones that you think are worth mentioning, then please comment below and then share that information with everybody else. So the FF7 Remake Cloud has a very powerful STMR, as does Savior of Souls Lightning. You're going to want 2 of those. Avalanche Tifa, Cetra Descendant Aerith that both came out, you're going to want multiple copies of those if you can get them. Zidane also has a very powerful STMR. That's going to be it for this video, and I'm just going to summarize all my advice for you now. So for the 1 to 4-star units, you can bulk fuse those together and keep an eye out for any TMRs that you might want an extra copy of. For the 5-star units, you can slowly get them all to 7 stars as you play the game. You're going to be pulling dupes, and you can turn those into prisms so that you can upgrade your units into 7 stars and get those STMRs. You can also use 5-star select tickets to get multiple units to 7-star if you need multiple copies of their STMR. It's also safe to convert extra dupes into fragments if that unit has a Neovision Awakened form. Just keep in mind, some Neovision units, you might actually want their STMR and their 7-star form, and you might want multiples, so you don't want to convert them into fragments in that case. And then finally, for Neovision units, always keep your first copy of a Neovision unit. Don't convert any units into fragments unless you actually need the materials. And make sure you grab powerful TMRs and STMRs off of units before you convert them into fragments. All right, so I'm gonna get out of here. That's a whole mouthful, but I hope it was useful for you to get this guide. Let me know if you want to see any other guides or videos for FFBE, and then otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.